I'm also very, very just blown away by the fact that I get to be here and share with y'all this week. I feel very unworthy, and I'm blessed to be here with y'all. And I sat and I thought whenever I got the invitation to come and speak, and I was thinking, what am I passionate about? And I'm passionate about kids ministry, but I can't talk about everything. And so I asked my wife, and she said, I don't know what you talk about. And I asked, so I called Scott, and he suggested this, and I thought, am I really that guy? And then, and I started flexing, and I don't know, but. But you know what? It's become something that is very dear to me, actually, here the last couple of years, is the idea of being a fit kids pastor, being a fit pastor in general. It's something that I think it's very important for us to understand, because we have to be able to see what it affects and where we're going with it. Just a few years ago, our staff, we'd gone to a ministers' meeting, and we were sitting at this ministers' meeting, and there was a guy who had come, and he was there to share his vision about this project he was wanting all of the different churches to be a part of. And he got up, and he was like massively obese, and it was sad. It was very sad, because he was a great guy. He had a great passion, and he was up there, and he was telling everybody, and all of us were just kind of sitting there going, oh my goodness, this poor guy. And no one heard what he had to say because of his obesity. In fact, we got back in the car to head back to our church. And as we got back into the car to go to our church, we were sitting there, and our youth pastor, he kind of looks at everybody, and all of us are sitting in the car together, and he goes, could you ever follow a fat pastor? And that was the question that came about. And it was something that I had never really even thought about. It was something that it had never really occurred to me that would be an effect. But then as we began to talk about how all the different things that it affects, and it just really began to blow me away. And then I kept on looking, and I started thinking about it, and the more and more I really started to look at it, is I was actually becoming that guy. You know what? I needed to change myself. This is me about that time. And I had gone in, and I had allowed, and it wasn't by anything that I had done, or, my kids, I'd kind of focused on my wife and my kids and all of this stuff. But you know what? I had let myself become this guy that I didn't ever want to be. And so I needed to change. I knew the stuff I knew that all the different things that come along with obesity and the different things like that, and how every bad disease, it's higher if you're overweight. It's just plain and simple. I know what the Bible says about taking care of the temple of God. But I didn't realize, and actually it was over in the last year, there was a survey done by Fit Pastors, that how big of an epidemic it is even among pastors. If you'll know, there's 43% of pastors, they don't feel confident in their pulpit every Sunday because of the way that they look. And over half of the pastors that were in the survey said they no longer feel attractive to their spouse. Just think of all of the things that could occur, all the things the negative things that could happen, and that went along with that. And I was realizing that I was being that person. I was becoming that person, and I had to change. You know what? And it really it hit me. It hit me about a year ago, even more. Whenever my daughter took a picture of me. And we had gone swimming, and I'd kind of started this journey a little bit, but I hadn't just gone full blown. I mean, I'd started running, and I'd started doing a couple of things here and there. But she took a picture of me, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm gross." And it was really that point that I said, "Hey, I need to do something with myself." And you know what? And that's the case because it affects so many different things. Let me tell you about some different things that it affects in our ministry. It affects your leadership. You know what? Your fitness level, it affects your leadership. Kids ministers, more than any other associate pastor, have to be a leader of leaders. You know, if you're a youth pastor or a worship pastor, you can get along and you can get up in front of a group of kids every Wednesday night, or you can get up and lead worship, and it's good to be a leader of leaders if you're in those spots, but you know, we have to be. We can't be in the same place. We can't be in the nursery, be in preschool. We can't be in kids church all at the same time. We have all of these different aspects that are going on every second we're at work, every second we're at our church. We have to be a leader of leaders. And so many leaders, they look at you and they look at your appearance, and they will, for lack of a better word, they judge you. And if you're coming in there and you have a look that's not healthy, then what makes them feel like they're going to be able to leave their kids with you? What makes them feel like they're going to listen to your vision? Just like that pastor that one day, no one heard his vision, people are not going to hear yours either. And it affects your leadership in the things that you do. The next thing is longevity. It was so good earlier to find out I am the oldest guy here. But you know what? Honestly, as I've been a kids pastor, I can remember back when I was 25. And I was this cool young guy. Before I had kids, I just got married, or even when I was a kids pastor before I got married, and I got to go and I'd go and hang out with the kids, and I'd go eat lunch with our kids at schools, and I was able to go do different things, and I was always going and doing stuff. Well, you know what? That role's changed over the years. And I had kids, and I became more and more. I became a parent too, and then even for the last several years, I actually, just as much as I was Pastor Darrell, I was Scout and Cooper's dad. And you know what? But now over the last is Scout, and my kids are actually getting older. I'm seeing this new younger group of young elementary kids come in, and I'm back to being this kind of a cool Pastor Darrell again, because I've taken the time out to be at fitness back as a priority in my life. And I can sit there and I can do anything with our kids. You know what? I'm 40 years old, and if I go to our preschool classes, I can get down on the floor and I can play with a kid. And I don't worry about it aching when I get back up. I can go and I can run a foot race with any elementary kid in our group, and I'm going to beat them. You know what? I can do handstand push-ups. And you know what? You know how many older elementary boys sit there when you say, hey, let's do handstand push-ups? They're like, I dare you. I don't believe you, Pastor Darrell. Let's go. and I'll knock out 10 handstand push-ups, and they'll be like, yeah, we can't do it, Pastor Darrell. But you know what? I can do stuff that they think is cool because they've been fed and they've been sitting in classes at school, and they hear about fitness and they hear about that stuff all the time at school. You know what? Fitness is going to help your longevity just because it's going to let you do the things that God's called you to do longer. You know, the other thing it's going to do is your life. It affects your life. When I started this journey of getting fit and doing the different things that I needed to do, you know what? I'll be honest. I would come home, I would have dinner with my family, and then I'd sit around, I'd hang out with my kids, I'd play with my kids. But you know what? We would stay up 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and watch TV and eat whatever. And you know, it was nothing for me to grab a thing of Oreos and down them suckers. That was a normal thing. Oreos and milk, sodas, all that stuff. But you know what? I realized that I wasn't living life more abundantly like God had told us to be. You know, I get up now, I go to the gym, I go ride my mountain bike, I run, I do all these different things. And I do them because it allows me to do stuff that I want to do. You know, this summer I got to go. We had a week, and we always go do adventure days on Mondays, which is my day off. As I tell my kids, I said, "Hey, it's Monday. It's summer. You guys are out of school. It's an adventure day. We don't have anything going on. Those camps, nothing. This is my day off. We're going to go on adventure day." And so we'll go down to the different swimming holes. And in Texas, they have swimming holes everywhere. They have, you have different places you can go, and you show up and so man, I was there, and we would go swinging off of ropes rope swings into the water. We're jumping off of cliffs into this thing, 20, 30-foot cliffs. We're jumping into the water. We're doing all this crazy stuff. But you know what? I can do it because I'm fit. I can do it because it's not gross for me to stand out there and look at people and look at me in my swimsuit. I'm not completely embarrassed. But you know what? My life is differently. God's called me to do some certain things in this life. He wants me to live life abundantly. And all of these things that I'm doing, they've all turned back around, and they allow me to speak on different things in kids ministry. When I'm up in front of a group of kids, I'm able to say, hey, you know what? I was scared when I was jumping off that cliff, but you know what? I wasn't worried because God's with me. And you know what? I was able to get there and tell them about this scary experience. I'm able to tell all these different things that I do, talk about mountain bike riding, how I ran into a tree because I didn't wear a helmet one day. I'm able to do all this, tell about all these different things that I would have never done if I had just been sitting at home not doing anything and watching television. And you know what? Our lives, God wants us to share our lives, and he wants us to do so many amazing things, and it's up to us. But you know what? If we allow our health to take over those things and be poor, then you know what? We miss out on those opportunities, and we're not ever going to be able to affect our kids the way God's intended us to do it. The question we have to ask is, where do we get started? Because so many people, it's a hard thing to do. I hit the wrong button. There it is. Where do we get started? One of the sayings in running is the hardest step is the first one out of the door. When you do that, you know what? Where do you get started on this whole journey? Like I said, there was a time when I sat down and I looked at this. My daughter, she took a picture of me, and I was like, dude, that's it. I've got to do something. We've got to find a start. Well, you know what? When we get started, there's really 4 steps that are very important to getting healthy. Number 1, find something that you enjoy. I always wanted a mountain bike. And you know what? I took a pastor's appreciation check one year, and I went and I bought a mountain bike. Not a super expensive one, but one that I could afford and one that I knew was going to last. And I started mountain biking. You know what? And it created a place for me to be able to go, and it made a place where I could go out and I could share, and I could spend some time by myself on my days off, and I could ride my bike, and I could go and just pray, and I could really disconnect from everything else around me. You know what? It was such a cool thing. The next thing was you need to set goals, set fitness goals. We set goals for everything else in our life. What's wrong with setting goals for fitness? I sat back, and my first goal really is I had a friend of mine, and he said, hey, I just started running, just barely started running, like weeks, literally. And he was like, dude, there's an obstacle course race that I want to do. You want to run it with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. Well, yeah, it was just a couple of obstacles, no big deal. And so I was like, all right, cool, we'll go do it. So next thing I know, I'm going back to my office to go register for this course that I've already told him I'm going to do. And I realized we're like jumping over fire and jumping in. So we're running the Warrior Dash. And you know what? We're getting all muddy, and it was a blast. But you know what? I set a goal to do that, and I did it. Last year, I set a goal to run a half marathon in 2.5 hours. And I did that. I broke it by 3 minutes. It came in like 2 hours and 28 minutes. And it was just right at almost 2. It was crazy. And then, you know what? I also I set a goal last year to do, or this year to do a CrossFit competition. I did that. And I've got my goal this coming year. I've got a goal. I'll start training next week when I get back to run a half marathon in 2 hours and 10 minutes. I want to keep having goals, and I want to keep getting better. I want to keep getting stronger. Next thing is be accountable to somebody. I had a friend of mine, pastor. He's a senior pastor, and he called me up about a month ago, and he says, hey, I want to get healthy again. He goes, will you be my accountability partner? I said, sure, dude, I love it. So every day, I get a text from him, hey, this is how I worked out, this is what I ate, this is where my weight is. That's awesome, dude. This is what I did. And I tell him back, hey, this is what I did to encourage him and different stuff. And we're on a lot different levels. But you know what? He's so far in like the last month, he's lost like 12 pounds. And he's doing great. But he's found somebody who can be accountable to. And that's so important for all of us to understand. How many people do we tell to find accountability partners for spiritual things? Now, the last thing is pay attention to what you eat. Like I said, hey, I went like 3 years, honestly, of working out. 3 years I was working out and I was doing stuff. But I wasn't hitting those goals like I was saying earlier. I wasn't hitting those goals that I had set up. I was out there and I was missing out on those things. But I realized that my diet was still the same thing. I mean, I have 10 pounds of candy in my office at any point in time. I've got a spreadsheet of games with candy and Oreo cookies. I have all these different things that are out there. You know what, guys? I just had to pay attention for a while of what I needed to eat. And when I did that, I realized that, hey, this was doable. This is very doable. You know what? And when you do these 4 things, when you do these 4 steps, and they become habit to us, just like anything else. And we get fitter and we get better. We become consistent at it. You know what? God's called us to do something amazing. It'd be a shame to let our health be something that keep us from that. Thank y'all.